Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder, and I am super excited about our guest today, Brie Seeley. We met through, of course, Annie, and she's just really awesome. We had our first call was supposed to be a half hour, and it ended up being an hour, and it could have been 5 hours, to be honest. She also, like me, is a Star Wars freak. Just going to throw that out there. And I'm not going to read her bio because we're going to be talking about her, but she is a TEDx and keynote speaker. She is the entrepreneur coach, a nonprofit founder. I'm there with you, and unapologetic as fuck, and a puzzle solver, which we have all these things in common. So without further ado, let's meet Brie.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
I dropped my first F-bomb. Didn't even realize it.
It is my pleasure to have been the one to catalyze that for you.
I mean, usually I give it about 15, 20 minutes. This was like right off the bat.
I mean, it's one of my favorite words.
But it can be anything. It could be a noun, a verb, an adjective, an adverb. I mean, It's like the everything word.
And I use it in all of those matters every single day.
So do I. But we're not going to make this episode about that.
No.
Although we could, but we won't. So how are you?
Getting by. It's been a heck of a start to the year, but doing what I can with what I have every day and just taking bold steps and supporting my clients. And, what else can we do right now?
No, I am there with you. It's interesting because I don't want to say, I told you so. I want to say, this is on you. So that's kind of where I'm at now. But we digress. So yes. I dropped the F-bomb and we got political all within like 90 seconds.
We're going to weed out all the people that aren't supposed to hear this just real quick.
Exactly. It's like, oh, goodness. But I know you have your Star Wars. So the first time we spoke, Brie noticed all of that stuff and said, what a Star Wars lover she was, but she was not in her office. Were you in the kitchen?
I think I was in the kitchen because my father-in-law so my office is our shed. And when we first built it, it was just like sheetrocked and painted white and just like very, it did its job. It was fine. But like we hadn't even trimmed out the windows or anything. And so I was like, I'm celebrating my 10 years in business this year. And I'm like, I feel like I want a setting. Like I want an office that I'm inspired to come to. I have the Big Goal Energy is my podcast. So I got the neon sign. I don't have a bunch of shit behind me that I used to have. I was like, I just want an upgrade. And so I love my father-in-law so much. He came in, he painted the entire shed for me. He put up the wallpaper. He put up the wainscoting. He put in shades so that I could have blackout curtains so that the sun's not hitting me while I'm recording. So we were not in here because it was getting redone, but I got to move back into my office and now I'm super inspired by my workspace and I get Star Wars hanging over my shoulder every day.
I know. And it's cool. It's definitely a cool picture. So you're in Oklahoma, so it's heated, I'm going to assume, right? So it's nice and
heated and air conditioned. So depending on the seasons, nice. And I got a new space heater. I actually got two. One is app controlled, so I can, when my alarm goes off at 5 a.m., turn the heat on in the office. Nice. And then I have a little foot warmer that's it's like a heating pad, but like for your feet. And so I just keep my feet on the heating pad all day, every day. It's my favorite life. I love being warm.
You have to send me the link for that because I'm using this right now.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it's good, but it doesn't keep my feet warm unless it's like directly under here. And then it makes me warm. So It's like
this thing is amazing. It's just like you set it to the temperature or whatever. And then it's almost like radiant heat, right? Where your feet are just like on this like warm, oh my God, I love it.
Okay. Send me the link because that's going to be
I will.
Okay. Okay. So do you know Kim Russo?
No.
Okay. So she's in Charleston, a little bit warmer, and she has like a she shed that she made into her office. So it's kind of like the same thing. So I love it.
Yep.
I
call mine the Brie shed, of course.
Of course, instead of the she shed. Oh, look at you. All right. And the one thing that, okay, we're just going to talk about all the things, because usually I ask my guests before we go on, like, hey, what do you want to talk about? But we're just going to talk about everything. So,
yep.
So tell us about Brie, like your journey to where you are and who you are now.
Yeah, I was raised by a mom and a grandmother who were very hardworking individuals. My mom was a single mom who my dad stopped paying child support when I was very young. So she worked like 3 or 4 jobs. And as a single mom, I spent a lot of time going to work with her. She turned into an entrepreneur at a certain point in our journey. And it's funny because I remember looking at it being like, I never want to be an entrepreneur. So fast forward, I get my bachelor's in fashion design. I go to Italy. I get my master's in fashion design. I come back to America. I'm living in near Seattle, Washington, and don't have an opportunity to be in the fashion industry. And also working a day job that I did not love and did not want bosses. And so I accidentally started my first business at the age of 23. And that first business grew over a course of 8 years from individualized prom dresses, homecoming dresses, flower girl dresses, to selling on Zappos.com, winning awards, being on the cover of the largest trade magazine in America, dressing Toni Braxton, just all these crazy, crazy accolades. What people didn't know, it looked really good on the outside. I'm currently deleting all of my Facebook posts and going back through 20 years worth of posts, and people constantly were like, oh my gosh, Brie's doing amazing things. And not that I wasn't doing amazing things, but behind closed doors, I felt like shit every day. I was having panic attacks. I was super depressed. If I wasn't working, I was in bed in the fetal position. But I didn't know that there was another pathway available to me. I thought because I chose fashion, that was my only path. And I had studied fashion and all the signs pointed towards that. Until March of 2015, I was meditating. Well, first of all, I had just gotten into a car accident. I just totaled my car. And 2 days later, I was meditating and I heard and felt this very clear message that fashion isn't it. And that I needed to shut my business down and walk away. And so 72 hours later, I closed my business of 8 years and had no idea what was on the other side of that or what I was going to do. I had no plan B, but I knew that I wasn't happy. And there was a part of me that believed that life wasn't supposed to be that way. And so within a month, I launched this business and started coaching women. The day job that I mentioned that I had was as a counselor. So at that point, I'd had 8 years of experience counseling and 8 years of experience as a business owner. And I started coaching women. I started coaching mindset, manifestation. More and more women started coming to me saying oh my gosh, what you did with your fashion business. Can you teach me to do that in my business? How do I grow my business? And so I started teaching entrepreneurship, became the entrepreneur coach. I vacillate between positions 1 and 5 on Google. So if you search the words entrepreneur coach, I'm usually in the top 5 search results. And I just embraced it and kept going. I've written a book. I've started communities. I've launched a nonprofit to help under-resourced women learn entrepreneurship. And really my mission has unfolded over the last, 18 years of entrepreneurship in just seeing the power that entrepreneurship has, particularly for women and minorities, to carve a new path for themselves. So many people want to talk about breaking the glass ceiling. And I'm like, if it were meant to break, it would have broken already.
Yeah.
It's not breaking. So what if we could just create a new system. And so women in entrepreneurship has become kind of my thing, where I'm like, the more women that I can teach to be financially free through entrepreneurship, the better our world is going to be. And so that's how I spend my days and nights and weekends and dreams and meditations. And it's become my all, my everything.
Wow. And I love that, because now I'm fixing my heater that we were just talking about, now more than ever, I think we need it. And, it's funny because I know a lot of women entrepreneurs, as you do. And I think the last year, there was growth and then struggle. And that happened with me. There's growth and then struggle right now, growing again. But it amazes me how I'm trying to think of how to articulate this. I'm also waiting for my dog to just lose her mind because there's deer in the backyard. But there's this mindset that society puts on women that they are, and I say they because I don't think that way, but they're afraid to ask for the money that they're worth. They're afraid to overstep. They're afraid to do like a lot of different things. And you're not in the Dames, are you?
No,
you're just okay. But then you have people like Annie and the weirdos, right? And we're all these really strong ass women that are like making it happen. We're out there, we're doing the thing, where I'm not going to say shattering any glass ceilings, but we're doing our thing, and we're doing it well, and we're doing it with heart and soul. And there are a lot of women out there that are afraid to do that. And I love that you're out there helping them, because, the reason that the world looks the way that it does now is because everybody is afraid of women, because they know that, I'm just going to throw it out there. Vaginas are way stronger than balls.
And I think that we're afraid of the power that we hold. And we've been just so conditioned to think that we don't have any power. When we do, it looks different. But we've been taught to relinquish our power to, well, it's safer if someone else gives you a paycheck, right? It's safer if you just play by the rules that have been laid out before you for how many years. Right. Like, it's safer and people still it blows their minds. Right after my husband and I got married in October, and someone said to me, like, oh, so like, since you're married now, like, you're going to get on his insurance, right? Because like, he works for a corporation. And I looked at him and I go, funny story. I also work for a corporation. I am an employee. I get a biweekly paycheck from a corporation who covers my health insurance. I happen to also own this corporation, but like, no, I'm not getting on his health insurance. I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I just turned around and walked away. But we've been conditioned to this idea that like, safety is working for someone else. Safety is like putting your livelihood into the hands of another person. And I'm like, no. Safety is realizing the power you hold to create your destiny. And you've been conditioned out of that power for so long. And I am here to condition you back into it, because I have watched my clients. I had a client who I met in 2018. At the time, she didn't even want to be an entrepreneur. She was $100,000 in debt. She texted me last year, which would have been 6 years later. She had her first 7-figure year in business, and she has 50 women who work for her. Like,
wow.
That's what we're all fucking capable of if we want it, right? I don't think everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. I personally have other employees of my business that like, like work with me and for me. But, I think that if that's something we want, that we need to give ourselves permission to go after it, because I've watched so many women be like, no, I just need to go back and get a job. Like, that's the solution. And then they're miserable again. And then they try it again and they fail. And then, I need to go back and get a job. Like, that's the solution. And I'm like, no, girl, you need to find your fucking power. Like, you need to identify what you have inside of you to create your destiny. And like, that's the pathway that I think all of us need to be on, especially right now in history.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's just like, so, I look at what I'm doing, I have a marketing agency, and I have a small not-for-profit in Indiana, and, we raise money and awareness for, the organizations in town that tackle social issues, preferably the smaller ones. But, sometimes, we do what we can, where we can. And all that I can think of now is, what can I do? How can I help? I see on Facebook, people are afraid. We were just talking about this. They're afraid to leave their houses. And, people are like, hey, if you're afraid to leave your house, I'll grocery shop for you. If you're afraid to use Instacart, because God forbid somebody from Instacart delivers to somebody and they're like, oh, I think this person is like, it's insane. And what, Kofi was saying earlier, how a Puerto Rican family was detained and at a detention center, and they're Puerto Rican, which is American. They're like literally United States citizens.
Yeah.
Not naturalized, not anything. They are literally citizens of the United States. And so it's like, how do we affect change? And you are doing it by empowering women. And I hate that word empowering because it's so overused, but you're helping, women find their strength and find their power. And that's what we need. And I really think that we women just have to figure out a way to, how the hell do we right this ship? Because it is so upside down right now.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like I've thought for a long time that women-led economies do better. Women-led companies do better. Like, there's so much data out there to show that, like, and yet we're still playing to all of the tunes that we've grown accustomed to, right? Of like, well, I need to work my way up the ladder, or, well, I'm not qualified for this, or, well, I can't do that, or who am I to have the audacity to say that, like, I own the corporation and I'm an employee of the corporation. And I don't know, I'm all day, every day, I'm reminding women, I'm like, who are you to not have the audacity? Like, what makes you think you're special that you get to just not have the audacity to go after the things that have been placed in your heart? Right. That you just get to, like, sit back and coast and, like, watch the world go to hell in a handbasket, and you just get to, like, who are you to think that you don't have the ability to make change in the world? Because I think all of us have it in ourselves, within us. And my job most days is just to remind women of what's inside of them, and then also help them with, the strategies and the steps and the things and the stuff to, like, get there. But that's generally a secondary conversation to developing up, like, who is the identity of the woman that has the things that you want. Because if you don't have those things yet, you probably are not yet that person who's aligned to having the things. So, like, what is that identity? What thoughts do you need to think? What habits do you need to implement? What actions do you need to take each day? How do you need to manage your time? What stories do you need to tell yourself? What narratives do you need to get rid of? Like, that's so much of my work, is just, like, helping women shed everything that's holding them back and helping bring them into who they need to be in the world to create the things that they're looking to create.
That's amazing. I just got like chills because I feel it's what you're doing is so needed right now. And I'm like so grateful that you're out there doing that. So what was it said that, you were a TEDx speaker. So what was your talk on?
I mean, really all of this. So my talk is called From Wages to Wealth, and it's about kind of my journey of realizing the power of entrepreneurship. I talk about my mom's experience, my grandmom's experience, my great-grandmom's experience, and the pathways they had to journey and the limitations that they faced in their not all entrepreneurial, but just in general, like financial and wealth journeys. And then how, I started in a day job and quickly realized that it wasn't at all what I wanted and that I wanted a limitless life. And to me, that meant not playing in a sandbox where all the toys were being like withheld from me, but rather exiting that sandbox and realizing that there was another sandbox with, again, unlimited toys and unlimited, like that I could go create whatever I wanted to create in that sandbox and not have people hold me back saying, well, you're not in that position yet, or, oh, you can't have a raise, or you can't make that money, or you can't do that thing in this environment, or whatever. Like, fuck you guys. Like, I'm like, I need to just go play in my own sandbox. So it was about basically how entrepreneurship is the pathway for the unlimited kind of finances or the breaking of the glass ceiling that we want to see.
We have to break our own glass ceiling. Yeah. And I, what I love about, and so I'll tell you, I don't know if I told you this story, but years ago, when I first started the business, I had a partner, but in name only, because everything has always been in my name and, all that stuff. And we had met with this business, and they were a local business, and they said, great. So we were going to do a presentation for them to get everything together. And since my partner at the time was in Chicago, I was just going to do the presentation. So I went out. I was so excited. I was like, this is my first big girl presentation. So I got a presenter on Amazon. This is 10 years ago, right? I still have it. I was going to get rid of it, but I saved it just to have it. And so I was all excited. I was, I get to the meeting and I'm setting things up. And one of the guys goes, so when's the owner getting here? And I'm plugging, the AV and everything in. And I'm like, I am the owner. And he goes, no, there was a guy with you. There was a guy with you on the call. So is he going to be here? And I went, no, because I'm the owner. I own this business. And he goes, honey, just, take it easy. I'm just asking a question. And I'm like, oh my God. So it's just piling and piling and piling. And I'm like, okay. And this was before I did mindfulness and shit. So I was not, I was a different, I will cut you. So I was like, okay. So I'm starting to unplug everything because I realized that this is not the client that I want to work with. Even though we were brand new and we were taking anybody that we could get, I was like, there's no fucking way in the world that I can work with this guy. There's just no way. So I start unplugging everything and he goes, what are you doing? I said, this clearly isn't going to work. You clearly aren't hearing that I, a woman, own this business and I am here to present our proposal to you. So I'm just unplugging. And he came over to me and Brie, he put his fucking arm around my shoulder and he said, sweetie, don't get your panties in a bunch. And I said, if you don't get your fucking hand off of me. So his partner is like, what are you doing? What is wrong? What are you doing? And I said, this just isn't, I'm done. So I unplugged everything and I left and I called my wife and I was like, oh my God. And she's like, breathe. And I'm like, I'm breathing, but I cannot believe that it's, it was like 2014. And
Well,
what the hell? So his partner calls me back a few hours later and he says, I am so sorry. I had no idea. Like he goes, I thought I heard what was going on, but I didn't really realize it until the end. And he goes, we really want to work with you. What if you just deal with me? And I said, no.
good for
And
you.
he said, why? And I said, because if you get hit by a bus tomorrow, I'm stuck with him and I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And my partner at the time was like, it's like $5,000 a month. And I was like, then you work with him on your own because I'm not working with him.
And this is where I talk about, like, in the past, we've been forced to stay in that sandbox.
Mm-hmm.
Like the women that came before us had to just shut up and grin and bear it because they didn't have a choice. We live in a world now where we have choices.
Yeah.
But a lot of the women I know are still acting like there aren't choices.
Right.
And are there circumstances that might make your journey a little bit longer? Like, yeah, maybe. Are there blocks and barriers and like things that are going to potentially stop you or prevent you from moving forward with this? Like, yeah, maybe. But also, I joined the club. I don't know anyone who's had an epic journey of any sort, not run into blocks or barriers. One of my favorite books that I love recommending for female entrepreneurs is The Alchemist. And it's not a business book, but it's a journey book. And the truth is, like, so, this kid sells all the sheep and he, goes on this epic journey and all his money gets taken from him. And it ends up taking 5 years longer than he wanted it to, right? Like all these things, but it's like, that's part of our stories. That's part of our journeys. Like I struggle and face challenges and blocks and things just like everyone else has. Like in the 10 years of owning this business, I've lived in 4 different states and 3 different time zones. Like we all went through the pandemic. That was a challenge in and of itself. Like, so personally, and I think it's Glennon Doyle that says this, that it's like, pick your hard. My hard,
yeah.
I would much rather have the hard that is building my business on my terms in my way than have the hard of where I'm having to fight for my rights, fight for my safety in a workplace, fight for a paycheck, fight for it's just not worth it. It's not worth the hard to me. And so that's where I'm like, if something has been placed on your heart to pursue, it's possible for you. Is it going to be a walk in the park? Probably not.
Right.
But go look at any epic journey. Go watch Star Wars. Go read the Iliad. Go read The Alchemist. Go any of those things that you're going to face challenges. Which challenge would you rather face? Personally, I'd rather face the challenges in this because I know at the end of the day, I have what it takes to overcome them. And I'm not having to fight against someone who wants to keep me back or hold me down.
Wow. It's so powerful. It's so true. And I think that when I started this, it was out of necessity because I lost my job because I stood up to the man. It was, do I collect unemployment or what do I do? And I honestly could not see myself just sitting home collecting it. Like, that's just not who I am. So my former partner and I, he was filming a commercial that I sold him. He said, what? He said, because I called all my clients and I said, hey, just to let you know, I'm not going to be your rep anymore. They fired me. And every one of them was like, what? They couldn't get me to buy shit from them for years. And you come along and I bought a $50,000 contract. I bought a $75,000, whatever it was. And so he goes, come to the commercial shoot. And I was like, okay. And so I went to the shoot and we started talking and he said, let's just start a business together. I do marketing, you do this, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I also do marketing. And he was like, oh. So then we kind of weighed, I drove out to Chicago, we weighed the pros and cons, and the pros just outweighed the cons. And so, we did the thing, and we agreed that we were going to keep everything in Indiana because I really wanted it in my name. He already had a different business, and taxes were way cheaper in Indiana than they were in Illinois. So we did the business, and I remember there were days that he was in the meeting that the client wouldn't even look at me. And I questioned it so many times. I was like, how do I stop that? So I stopped it by just doing the meetings myself. And I was literally taking my power back. And it was just this really odd thing that it was and I told him why I was doing it. I said, they don't look at me when we're in the meetings. So, you stay there. You don't want to come down for all the meetings anyway. I will handle the meetings and we'll do whatever. And that guy was the last guy that ever said, where's your partner? Or where's the owner? And I remember the very last meeting that I had right before COVID was with this very, on the outside, you would have looked at him and thought, MAGA, misogynist, 100%. And I always slipped in that I have a wife because I want people to know ahead of time what they're getting into.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be working with somebody for 3-4 months and then all of a sudden they find out that, I have a wife and they're like, oh my God, I can't work with you. So I just kind of, slip it in. And so with this guy, I was ready to just leave. And we'll just call him Danny. And, he said, yeah, so what do you do in your spare time? And I said, well, my wife and I go to, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, shut up. He goes, my brother's gay. And I went, what? And he goes, you thought I was a redneck. And I said, I did not think you were a redneck. He goes, no, but you thought I was going to vote for, whatever. And I said, that I did. So he goes, he said, it's so funny. He goes, because people perceive me, he goes, and I love it. Because I get to sit in these bars and hear these people just go off. And then I get to put their asses in their place. He goes, and it's the best thing ever. And I was like, so I don't normally do this, but can I hug you? And, and so, we hugged and I thanked him. He said, I have 3 daughters. He's like, I want them to be you. I want them to own their own business. I want to, he goes, if I don't sell this, soon or whatever, that was weird. I'm going to leave it to them or they're, going to take it over. Sorry, there was a really big thing. And I was just like, oh my God, that's the best thing that I ever heard. And so, it gave me so much hope. And then the pandemic happened. And his business kind of took a hit, which was kind of sad. But it was one of those things, maybe we shouldn't, we have allies out there, right? We have men that are rooting for us. And I think we just need to, we don't need to find them. They need to let us know who they are so that we know this is a safe space and all that other stuff. But this podcast took a whole different turn that I thought it was gonna. So there are people that are listening to this that are, thinking about entrepreneurs, and you're the entrepreneur coach, right? So what is, I'm sure people listening to it now are like, whoa, that was like a 180. But what kind of advice can you give somebody who's thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, male, female, whatever?
Yeah. So I call these people Wantrepreneurs because they want to be entrepreneurs, but they haven't taken the thing yet. I wrote a book on taking leaps of faith. It's called Permission to Leap. And it's like, how do you actually take a leap? Take a leap of faith and like do the thing. And the first thing that I talk about in the book is like, you got to get off the fence and you have to make a decision. Because if you're sitting on a fence and you're like, well, will I, won't I, will I, won't I, will I, won't I, you're literally stuck. And so the first thing you have to do is you just have to decide. And the cool part is that first decision doesn't have to be like, I'm 110% in, I'm going to be a full-time entrepreneur for the rest of my life. But it does have to be I'm willing to take the first step. Because truth being told, I told you all about my journey. In 2007, if you had told that 23-year-old Brie that this Brie would be in existence, she would not have believed you, right? So you don't, again, need to say like, oh, I'm going to go to the moon and back. It's like, well, I just need to take that first step. So my first step was starting a side hustle, right? Starting to make things and talk to people about what I was doing. And then from there, I made my first collection. But my first collection was still only one-offs. Well, from there, then I made my next collection, which had multiples and sizes and got into a boutique. From there, I got into a trade show. From there, I got into, right? Like, so that first decision of getting off the fence isn't about committing to the rest of your life or making, this huge, big, audacious commitment or devotion or whatever. Like, it's just about taking that first step and you have to do it. You have to address your fears of failure. You have to find that power within you. You need to keep taking steps every single day. And then also too, as the entrepreneur coach, you also need to learn business. Like I have a course that is dedicated to like, what do you actually need to do to launch a business? Because way too many people are like, oh, I'm just going to start an Instagram page and like, look, I have a business. And they're like, why am I not getting any sales? I'm like, because that's not starting a business. Right. So it like step by step guides people through everything they need to do to actually start a business. So I think those are my two things. One, you need to start taking steps. And two, you need to learn business, because if you don't know business, if you don't know marketing, if you don't know pricing, if you don't know sales, if you don't know like all of the building blocks that it takes to start a business, it's going to be a very short-lived experience for you.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I started, I had no clue.
Same.
I was just like, right. I was like, okay, we'll build websites and do SEO and we're going to charge dirt cheap because it's only the two of us. And people were getting really amazing quality for dirt cheap. And I didn't know the margins and I didn't know all that stuff. And I just like did the thing. And as the years went by, it was like, ooh. And then 3 years ago this month, holy crap. 3 years ago, it was like, okay, I need to get clear on what I want to do. And then I need to not just do the thing, but I need to learn to do the thing right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't thinking about scaling. I wasn't thinking about anything because it was just me and people wanted to work with me and, the whole thing. And that's not scalable. Right. So
very true.
Now I'm scaling, or I'm in the process of scaling. And it's like, it's not been daunting because I've been working with Krista Grasso and Kim Woods and I've had amazing guidance, but it has been really eye-opening in that, margins are different. P&L is, different. All these things are different. And I have a bookkeeper now, because I hit like a certain amount and it was like, I can't do this shit by myself. Oh my God. And
I think like this is, so I take people, so entrepreneurs can come to me, right? And then I help them start their businesses. They become solopreneurs. Well, then it's like solopreneurs reach a certain threshold. And like you just said, they're doing everything themselves. They have limited time. So if they want to make more money, they're not able to make more money because they don't have more time to sell. And it becomes this like rat race kind of like trap. And then they're overworking, they're underliving, they start to resent their business, right? Like all these things happen. And so then exactly what you're talking about is like, okay, well, I did well to like get to this point, but now what got me here
isn't going to get me there. Right.
And so like, that's then where people come more into like my mastermind. And it's like, okay, how do we need to redesign your business to help you now achieve those goals? Because scaling is a completely different conversation than being a solopreneur, where you're like literally trading time for money, which is great. It's a great place to start. It's a great place to start. And if that's all you want, like if you want a cushy, like 6-figure or multi-6-figure, whatever, like amazing. And if you want more, you can't duplicate yourself. We haven't figured out cloning yet.
We have, but that's scary. That's another story. So
we haven't figured out how to add more time to our days yet, right? Like, so then what's the option? Well, the option is, that redesigning process of like, how do we actually build a foundation for a business that will withstand the height that we want to build?
Yep.
So that's like then the next kind of iteration or process that I work with people through and that is such a unique process that it's different for every single business owner.
Sure.
And so there's so many people that come to me that are like, I've tried all the things and nothing worked. And I'm like, that's because like you've been trying to walk someone else's path and it's not your path. So that's where like, when I get into people's businesses, it's like, it's such a like individualized journey that there's so much work to be like, okay, well, where are you? What are you currently selling? Where's your time being taken up? Where do you want to be? Who's your customer? Like all of those things have to play into the strategy to then scale your business. That it's why it's hard, because so many people just want to buy a course or whatever. And it's like, there's not really like a course that will help every single person scale their business. No. It doesn't exist.
No. And I think that, I think that me personally, like I always say, if you ever want to really get to know who you are, become an entrepreneur, because you're going to know all the things, right? Mm-hmm. And, right now I'm in the process of like letting go. Okay, people who aren't watching this and listening, my eyes are bugging out of my head right now, because I am a type A ADHD control freak. I mean, it is what it is, right? And I'm letting go. I'm letting my OBM handle the team. I'm letting my, I'm letting go. And there are certain things that I won't let go, because it is still me. So I want that personalized experience still, right? But the minutia shit, I don't need to do anymore. So I'm like I said, I'm still hanging on a little, but I'm mostly letting go. And it was one of those things that I was like, when I was talking to my OBM, she goes, well, I'll do this and I'll do this. And I'm like, no, I do that. She goes, no, that's why you have me, is because you're not supposed to be doing that. And I was like, yeah, but I've been doing that. Like I'm sitting here twisting my hands right now, because even thinking about it is just so like,
Well, this too is where it's like, I moved to Oklahoma during the pandemic, and one of the most prevailing mindsets here that drives me absolutely fucking crazy is like, well, this is how we've done things up until now. And I'm like,
no.
That's why you're stuck where you are, y'all. Yep. Like, this is why you haven't progressed. Like, you want to know why your state is the worst for education and the worst for women and the worst for healthcare?
No, Indiana's probably right there. Indiana probably has you beat right now.
Probably close, but Oklahoma's been 50 and all these things. And I'm like, the reason is because you keep doing things the way you've always done them. Like, right. I just talked about this in my podcast, was like, have you ever been to a hotel where you get a key card and the key card like only gets you up to a certain level.
Yes.
But then you have to get like a new key card if you like to access the penthouse or like any of the upper levels or whatever. It's like you've had this key card and it's worked for a long time and it's gotten you to where you are, which is fantastic.
Yep.
But now it's time to like trade in the key card to get a new key card if you want to get to the higher levels. And anything, and I tell this to my clients all the time, anything that is repeatable, duplicatable, or systemizable has got to go. It's got to go. You can't do it. It's not a good use of your time and energy.
Right.
And like, I always think too, I'm like, I'm also not the best person to be doing all the things in my business. Like, just because I figured out how to like kind of do something okay, doesn't mean it's the best way of doing it. So I don't know. I always try to get people who are smarter than me or like a specialist in like that area to do the thing, because
Yes.
I'm like, you can probably figure out how to do this better than I have. I've figured it out, but that doesn't mean that it's the right way. So like,
Right. Or the most efficient way, right? There's like somebody out there. And so that's, that's what I'm doing. And I get better each week. Like I definitely do. And I, at the end of each week, I recognize that because I think it's really big. I think it's important to, recognize and give yourself kudos where needed. Right. So like at the end of the week, I'll be like, whoo, you let that go. Good girl, and then Monday I'll come and I'll get an email and I'll go to answer that. I'm like, wait, no, I'm not supposed to be answering that, email. So I step back. And I love it. I love that I can do that. But there's still, like I said, there's just still some things that, I'm working through. But I think that, just in general, for me, it's just been so much growth as a human.
yep.
As a business owner. My leadership style is opposite of any boss I ever had. And clearly there's a different boss leader, right? And I make sure that people know that it's a safe space to fuck up. Now, not to fuck up consistently, because then it's, but if you make a mistake and you learn from it, then it's not a mistake, right? It's a lesson.
Yep.
We don't want you to have too many lessons, but so that's how I kind of look at it. And because I give people that space, I'll never forget one of my VAs that I'm working with, screwed something up, and she was afraid to come to. I already knew, because of course I know I own the business, right? And she was like so afraid. And so I sent her a message and I said, let's hop on a Zoom call. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be, afraid about. And, she got on and she, made this like face. And I said, you didn't destroy my business. I mean, it was a big fuck up, but learn from it. That's it. Learn from it. And she was just like, that's it. And I said, yeah, what did you expect? And I knew what she expected. But that's not who I am, how I run stuff. So,
well, and I think too, that's the other thing, when I talk about women getting out of corporate and starting to build a new economy, is we also do lead differently. And even women in corporate, we as leaders in entrepreneurship lead differently than women in corporate. I probably lead differently in my business than I would if I were a corporate leader, right? And so I think that, again, like all these old, well, this is how things have been done in the past, or this is what it looks like to be a leader in the corporate space or whatever. Like, just because it's been done that way for so long, like, is that really still the best way to do it? And this is why I say, like, more women need to be entrepreneurs and business owners and employers, is because we're creating a completely different space. Like, I love my assistant so much. She also has ADHD. She's also working through some personal growth stuff on her journey as well, right? And like, she and I have a very strong relationship where I can give her a lot of grace. Mm-hmm. but also be like, hey, some things are lagging this week. Like, can you pick up the slack? But I'm also not shaming or blaming her, because I know that there's other factors at play, and she's great at what she does. And I value her so much that for me is way more important in my leadership style than I think how like corporate leadership is taught and done.
Right.
And I think that as someone like knowing her, being on the receiving end of that as well, like she's told me very similarly to like what you said, that, it's a safe space. Yeah. And she was not able to work really for other people prior to this because no one was able to give her the grace and show her the leadership that she needed to be able to thrive in a work environment. And so, again, I think that this is why more of us need to be in this space, right, and need to be divesting ourselves from these old paradigms and these old ways of doing business, because it never really worked. We contorted ourselves to be okay with it, but why? Why be okay with something when you can just create an entirely new model?
Right. And for me, it's leading with empathy. Yeah. I think that's what's lacking in the world is empathy. Yeah. Or in the business world, or just in the fucking world in general. Like empathy. I don't know what's happened, but I'm not going to go back there. But it's like not having that empathy, not worrying about your fellow person, not worrying about that person that's working for you, and they're a human fucking being. They're going to go through stuff. They're they're living beings that have families, that have responsibilities, and stuff is going to happen to them. And you need to be there for them. If it's a constant thing, then it's something you need to evaluate. But if it's a once in a while thing and they're in crisis, you have to be that crisis counselor. You have to be there to help them. Yeah. And so that's the kind of space that I'm trying to build. And that's what women do.
I would say though, so one thing I'll add on to that, I fully agree with that in terms of like having people that are working for you. I think it's also important as entrepreneurs that we're also giving ourselves that same grace and empathy.
100%.
One of my clients today, in fact, was like, we're in the midst of a revenue challenge with my mastermind right now. And so they all have revenue goals and they're taking inspired action every day and like working towards that. And she commented, she's like, yesterday was such a shit show and I couldn't do anything. And, I was having some family issues to deal with and this and that. And like, I just feel really bad because I missed one of the 10 days. And I was like, whoa. I was like, slow your roll. The reason that we are entrepreneurs is so that we can have the space and the freedom to deal with things like this when they come up.
That's right.
So could you have put action into your business yesterday? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. You could have. There were some other pressing things that needed your attention. And I was like, I just want you to recognize that like, this is why you're an entrepreneur.
Right.
So have some compassion and some empathy for yourself, and then pick yourself back up and get back at it. Like that's just what we have to do. But we do also have to, as entrepreneurs, obviously, lead ourselves as well as leading other people. And I think that
with grace, like you said.
Yeah. Because most of my women tend to be high achievers, that their output and their productivity has determined their worth and their value for so long, their entire lives, right? And so if they're not being productive, therefore they're not good in their business. Or if they're like, it's like you said, the personal development in entrepreneurship is, I think, never ending. Because we're having to detangle all of the lies and the bullshit and the expectations and the status quo shit that's been placed on us for our entire lives, and trying to come back to who we truly are to then be able to go out and serve and lead in the world.
Yeah. So last Wednesday, I had my spiral. And it was and I felt it coming on for like 2 days since, the inauguration, right? And I was like, okay, I don't have time for this shit. So I just have to like push through it. And Tuesday night, I didn't fall asleep till 4:30 in the morning. And I think I had like 3 meetings, and I didn't even have my assistant do this. I emailed each of the people and I said, hey, I am taking a personal health day today or a mental health day today. So let's reschedule. I'm sorry for the inconvenience. And normally I would have my assistant just shoot an email and saying, hey, Iris is whatever. But because this was so personal to me, so I did it. And I let myself spiral. Because if I didn't, my favorite saying, and I don't know if I made it up or somebody made it up, but, it's like in order to get through it, you have to go through it. And so I had to get to the other side, and I wouldn't have if I didn't go through the spiral. So I let myself spiral. I binge graze. Like I've been binging Grays, like I can't tell you, but like I just binge Grays, like, all day.
I turned to House on the inauguration day. I don't know if you've ever watched that show, but I started watching House because I was
every episode.
It's actually a thing my therapist told me. It's like a psychological safety thing. If you're like if there's chaos or stress or whatever, turning back to a show that's been, or even music. I've been listening to a bunch of my like high school albums and stuff. It's a psychological safety thing. And so 100% that like going back to old shows and old music during this time, I think is like completely normal.
Well, and I never watched it. Never watched it. I was like, no, I saw ER. Who the hell needs to watch Grays? And oh my God, it's so good. Anyway, so I think now I'm up to like season 20. So I've caught up. Like, let me tell you, right? So, but Wednesday was my spiral, and I let myself spiral. And I told my wife, I'm like, today's my spiral day. So I'm, doing whatever. And she, she works for a company that unfortunately she has to deal with all of that. And I woke up Thursday and I felt 1,000 times better. I still was like, there was still a little bit of residual, spiral, but I got, most of it done. And I was so proud of myself because a year ago, I would have been like, I can't, I don't have time. I have to do this. I have to do this. If I don't do this, this isn't going to get done. If I don't do this, this isn't going to get done. So I cannot afford myself that time. And the fact that I was able to afford myself that time and go through what I had to go through, I was able to get through it. And it was amazing. And I woke up in the morning, like I think I told you this, but every morning I get up, I get out of the shower, I look at myself in the mirror, all of me. And it's like, I love you, go out and kill it. And if you don't, you'll kill it tomorrow. There's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I give myself grace every morning with that. And I woke up that next morning and I, got out of the shower and it was like, I'm so proud of you that you did that. I'm so, and the fact that I could do it was just, it was the best feeling in the world. And now, I don't spiral now. Now I just get a little disgusted with shit. Just like it is what it is. But I don't let myself go down that spiral. So,
I mean, it's true that like we do have to do those things and feel those things. I've started kind of preemptively just building into my schedule space. And so like on Mondays, I don't take any meetings. I'll do meetings associated with like some of my networking groups, and I've been seeing a healer for my shoulder every Monday and also like catching up on some administrative stuff. So that day's a spacious day in general. And then Fridays, I also don't take meetings. And Friday, I go to book club at noon. And then after book club, I take the rest of the day off. And I've been working through the artist way. And so I've been giving myself artist dates every Friday afternoon, which is really fantastic. And like giving myself that space to process whatever I need to process and tap back into my creativity. And just like, because I've similarly for so long in my entrepreneurial journey, just like grinded and like striving and just working hard and hustling and like all of that stuff. And almost killed me. And I'm just not willing to do that. So my whole thing is like, how am I working smarter? How am I working smarter? Because working harder is not an option. I manifested a shoulder injury, right? For the universe to show me, stop fucking carrying everything and working so goddamn hard. So I'm like, all right, how am I being smart about what I'm doing moving forward? And a lot of that involves a hell of a lot of space. So every 2 hours every morning, and then Mondays are spacious and Fridays are spacious, and I'm honoring my inner creative, and I'm, like it's such an important process. And obviously there are days, I had a day yesterday. Everyone I know had a day yesterday. I don't know what it was, but like all of my clients on my call today were like, yeah, totally cried all day yesterday. And I was like, me too. What was in the air yesterday? But again, like we give ourselves the space to, I was on my little meditation cushion right on the other side of my desk, like journaling and getting through some anger and some thoughts and some fears, and then picking myself up and being like, all right, now what are 2 things I can do to keep moving forward today? And like, that's really the balance of entrepreneurship and the benefit of it. Like, what corporate environment have you ever worked at that could be a thing or that could be allowed, right? Like, again, like pick your hard. My hard, I'd rather cry on my meditation cushion for 3 hours and then get back at it than have to like pretend that everything's okay and contort myself into being someone that I'm not. Right. So.
Wow. Well, I can't believe we're at like an hour. I knew this was going fast because we could talk for like 5 hours. Okay.
Oh, true. So, we didn't even touch on Star Wars yet.
I know. You'll just have to be on again and we'll just do a whole Star Wars. Oh, maybe we'll do that. We'll do like a whole how Star Wars and okay, we'll talk. Anyway, thank you for taking time out of your day to day. It's always a pleasure talking to you, but I love that I get to share you with my audience because you're awesome.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And the last question I ask all of my guests is,
I think you prepped me for this one, and now I don't remember what it was.
I didn't prep you. I kind of told you, and I tell people because I know they're going to forget. But I don't want you to be prepped. I just want you to tell me what lights your fire.
It's interesting. Like passion is one of my words. It is like one of my guiding principles. And I think for me, the thing that makes me most passionate is getting to be myself unapologetically all day, every day, and helping other women do the same, right? And helping other women find that fire within themselves. That's what keeps me going. Like if it were just me sitting in my shed all day, every day, like, yeah, cool. I could like stoke my own fire and like be passionate about stuff. But getting to do it around other incredible women who are also on similar journeys. And I just like, I don't know, as much as the world around us right now is telling us that it's not making a difference, I refuse to believe that. And I think that those of us that like you and I and Annie and the Legitimati and all, we are all doing great things in the world, and we're getting to bring more great women into our spheres. And like, I just refuse to believe that what we're being shown in the world around us right now is the truth.
Yeah. So I think we have our own truth. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to say goodbye and I will be right back. Okay. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out for an hour plus. I know I got political this time. Sometimes I do. I can't help myself. But I hope that after meeting Brie, go out and get her book. What's the name of your book?
Permission to Leap.
Permission to Leap. Go out and get her book, Permission to Leap. Thank you all for being here and letting me continue to do this. I absolutely love this. People being, you should make money on this. It's not about that for me. It's about bringing people like Brie to you so that you can grab some really important nuggets from this. And speaking of nuggets, like, share, subscribe. Let us know a nugget that you've gotten from this episode in the comments below. And for now, I just want to say thank you again. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, go out and find what lights your fire. See ya.